All of us in this room today, we've all heard about the underdog, especially in sports. The team that's counted out, the player that nobody believes in, the Cinderella story. But what does it really mean to be an underdog? Many of you here have probably felt like underdogs yourselves at one point in time in your life, whether it's at work or in your personal life, asking yourself this question: why do they see me this way? Like, why is the world telling me that I can't make it? But what if being an underdog isn't just about, being underestimated? Today, I'm going to be introducing you to a different kind of underdog. Not the one who beats the odds, the one who never even makes it into the story in the first place, the invisible athlete. Now, I know this feeling firsthand. I'm South Asian. We make up 25% of the world's population, 1 in every 4 people on Earth. But when it comes to the world's biggest stages in sports, we're practically invisible. As an Indian American growing up in both the US and overseas, whether I was watching the World Cup, the NBA, the NFL, the Premier League, or the Olympics, I always just sat there thinking, where are we? And here's the truth. 0 South Asians have ever played in the FIFA World Cup. None have played in the FIBA Basketball World Cup. And India and Pakistan, over 1.5 billion people combined, essentially have the lowest Olympic medal count per capita in the world. And before you say, oh, but with such a massive population, it's only a matter of time before things change, I'm going to stop you right there. I've heard that line so many times. So many times. And there's literally nothing that makes me more upset than hearing that. Just time alone is never going to solve this. Because if that were true, we wouldn't still be waiting, right? It's funny to me. It's a privilege also, being here at Tufts with all of you. Because almost a decade ago, I was sitting right where you are, wrestling with the same question in my head. How can a population that's seemingly everywhere also be nowhere when it comes to the biggest platforms in sports? And today I hope to explain why that's the case. Look, I'm not a pro athlete, I'm not a coach, I'm not even that athletic, to be honest. But I've spent my entire career in the sports and entertainment industry trying to figure out what makes champions. And fast forward 10 years later, I think I've finally figured it out. So, what are the ingredients that go into creating successful athletes? People call it the X factor. But let's be real. We don't know how to quantify that yet. There's no set formula for success in sports either. So, what is it? Is it the cards that were dealt when we're born? The genes we inherit from our ancestors? How much of this stuff is predetermined? I'd argue that right there, that's the biggest myth when it comes to athlete development. People they absolutely love to blame biology because that makes it seem like all of this stuff is out of our control. It's very easy to say, maybe South Asians just aren't built for this. You've heard all the stereotypes before, but let's go through them. It's more fun that way, right? We're supposed to be doctors, engineers, accountants, literally anything but athletes. And the scariest part is we've started to kind of believe that ourselves. But when you look at the data, the real reason we're behind isn't DNA. The truth is, champions aren't born. They're built over time. And in my experience, there are 3 main factors here that play a really important role. The first is infrastructure. Do you have access to high-quality training facilities? The second is investment. Are there people and institutions that are actually betting on your potential and putting actual dollars and capital behind it? And the third, this is my favorite, is culture. In your community, do you have relatable role models that prove that your dream is possible? Now, the ultimate test for athletes are the Olympic Games, so why don't we start there? When you look at the past 5 Olympic Games, medals tend to track pretty closely with the country's GDP. The US and China, they've got the 2 highest GDPs and the 2 highest medal counts. But then when you go down, you could see countries like India, which compared to countries with a similar GDP and economy, they're much further behind in terms of their medal count. Why? Because it's not just about resources. It's really about how you invest them. Like, let's use basketball as an example. In the US, there's a full end-to-end pipeline for athletes. There's 24,000 high school programs, there's almost 2,000 college teams, and there are pro leagues that have real salaries. And even with all that infrastructure, according to the NCAA, like just 10% of high school players make it to the college level, and then 2.4% make it to the pros. So it's hard. It's really hard, even with the best system in the world. Now let's compare that to India. I've personally spent the past few years on the ground there developing basketball, and I really mean it when I say this. There is real raw talent, but because of the lack of infrastructure, there's just like no way for these athletes to develop. There's fewer than 1,000 courts. They're mainly outdoors. There's no reliable pro league, so there's no financial future in the sport. Because honestly, if your sport pays you $0, why would you dedicate your whole life to it? Let's zoom out a little bit now and take a look at some international trends. China has 86% of all Olympic medals in table tennis. The US has 75%, almost 3/4 of all Olympic gold medals in basketball. New Zealand has 50% of all rugby titles, and Kenya has around 1/3 of all Olympic gold medals when it comes to long distance running. And South Asia naturally has cricket, right? That's our passion. All these countries were able to reach success because they've built the systems that are required to make that happen. In South Asia, cricket isn't just a sport, right? It's life. But that's not that unique. That's the same thing that soccer is in Brazil or ice hockey in Canada. There are pro leagues, there are an endless number of icons, and they have full cultural support. Kids in Bombay, they're going to play cricket because they know success is possible. And as a result, parents invest in the sport and schools provide space for it. So the question isn't, can we become athletes? We already are, regardless of whether you like the sport of cricket or not. The question is, why haven't we been able to replicate that success in other areas? Because when you look at sports like basketball, soccer, or track and field, we don't have the same systems, or any system at all. We don't have the same level of capital investment. And in my opinion, the most important thing is missing. We don't have the same level of role models. We might have some fans of the sport, maybe even some players with like a hint of athletic potential, but because we're missing those three things, infrastructure, investment, and culture, everyone's stuck as the invisible athlete. And that's when something dangerous happens. Self-disqualification. Like, out of this whole conversation, this is the most important part of this discussion. Because visibility, it's not just some D&I soundbite. Without role models, kids are going to assume, this sport isn't for me. I don't have the right body type. And parents end up pushing their kids towards quote-unquote safer paths, and this cycle of self-disqualification continues. That's what I've realized over the years. Being an underdog, it's not always about having less ability. It's really about believing that we don't belong. We tell ourselves, I don't have the right background. I don't have the right resources. I don't have the right genetics. And we assume that success is reserved for other people who were quote-unquote built for this. And because we don't see anyone like us at the top, we start to believe it. That's the real challenge for underdogs, like the invisible athlete. We disqualify ourselves before anyone out there actually does. And here's the thing. Self-disqualification doesn't just happen in our own heads. It's reinforced by the world around us. South Asian culture places a huge emphasis on stability. A 2017 Pew Research study found that 70%, over 70% actually, of South Asian parents push their kids towards careers in STEM. And here's the irony. Asian families, they spend more on youth sports than almost anybody else, 20% higher than the average. But Asian kids quit sports younger than any group, about 6 months before their 10th birthday. So you tell me, is this really about a lack of talent and resources, or is it about a lack of belief? Now, at the end of the day, if we wanted to be cynical about it, this is all just soft science, right? It's culture, mindset. But there is another layer to this, because eventually, hypothetically, you gather all the strength to push back on all these stereotypes, all these barriers, and you say, you know what? No, I belong here. I can do this. Someone else is going to hit you with that next barrier. Gautam, listen, man. This isn't just about culture. This is just about biology. It's not your fault. Some people just aren't built for the game. Now, that can't be an acceptable answer. It's so defeatist. So let's just talk about this myth right now. Let's confront this narrative directly and finally debunk this once and for all. A 2016 research paper listed on the National Library of Medicine tested 125,000 people across 20 countries for hand grip strength. South Asians, they ranked the very lowest. South Asians also tend to have lower muscle mass, even controlling for height and weight. These are just two examples, but there's lots of studies out here that hint at these similar things. But here's the thing. Sports aren't built on averages. They're literally built on exceptions. If we only believed in the scientific data, India's Neeraj Chopra and Pakistan's Arshad Nadeem wouldn't be Olympic gold medalists in javelin. Like, imagine telling these two guys they weren't supposed to win, because there's some studies out there that suggest that South Asians have weak grip strength. Don't train, find something else to do. Think about that. Every statistic, every prediction, every set of analytics, they all try to tell us what should happen. But the best moments in sports, they come from the ones who weren't supposed to win. The underdogs. The invisible athletes who demanded that they be seen. They didn't self-disqualify based on averages. And neither should we. So, how does the invisible athlete become seen? Because in my 10 years working in sports, I've met hundreds of invisible athletes all around the world. And talent exists in the most unexpected places. But none of it actually matters if nobody knows their story, if nobody sees their success. So how do we fix that? That's why I created Brown Ballers. It's the home for South Asian athletes, because I didn't want to be 50 years old and live in an environment where kids like me don't have any athletic role models, particularly in North America, to point to. And I wasn't going to wait for somebody else to build it. Now, 4 years ago, we created an all-South Asian basketball team to compete in ESPN's $1 million basketball tournament. Nobody thought we belonged there. Our team was ranked last, and our biggest haters, frankly, were from our own community. But then, we pulled off the biggest upset in the tournament's 10-plus year history, taking down the #1 seed. With a team of pro athletes, but also full-time doctors and engineers. We proved we don't have to choose between academics and athletics. We can do both. And now, our camps are bigger than ever. Players from our programs are going pro overseas. And hopefully, the invisible athlete has become less likely to self-disqualify themselves. So to repeat what I shared at the top of this talk, when people say, oh, with South Asia's massive population of 2 billion plus people, it's only a matter of time, I literally can't think of a worse assumption to make when it comes to sports. There is literally nothing inevitable about developing athletes. If anything, it is the hardest, most intentional, non-guaranteed investment any individual or country could ever make. So here's my message to you. Stop waiting for representation. Stop waiting for the world to catch up. And most importantly, stop waiting for someone else to do it first. Because here's the problem with waiting for somebody else. If everyone thinks this way, no one actually ever steps up. You actually have an advantage as an underdog. Let's forget the sports context here for a moment. Everyone underestimates you. No one expects anything. There's no pressure, there's no limits, just opportunity. That's your advantage. Because when you refuse to let numbers define you, you take control, and you can actually flip the script. And by the time they realize they were wrong about you, it's already too late. The invisible athlete doesn't wait for fairness. They show up anyway, and then they win anyway. The world doesn't need another follower. So go out there and be the first. Thank you.